mission, stick to the 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 mission.
What's up, everybody? Pat Healy here with Brooklyn Boxing Podcast, sitting here live in the 5th Street Gym, joined by the Tomahawk, who's fighting in a couple days here, Drew Dwelly. How's it going, man?
How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for coming on today. I'm excited to talk to you, and it's great timing because you're fighting here in a couple days in the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo. Just tell me what you're feeling headed into a fight, a couple days here, getting focused, getting ready to destroy here in the first round.
Yeah, so it's just the last couple of days, just winding down from training, just losing the last couple pounds and, just getting mentally ready. And for me, getting ready to come back from surgery. A little different challenge than a regular fight, but I'm ready.
Yeah, and we were talking, a week or so ago, we were working out a little bit. You were bringing me through a shoulder workout, back workout. You've been going through so much rehab over the past few months from your injury. Talk to me a little bit about that process, how you beat the doctor's, that prediction there of the timeline. You're way ahead of that. What went into the recovery and your methods of training even while hurt, right?
Yeah, so basically from the surgery, the doctor gave me about a 6-month time frame to be healed. I kind of took that as a challenge and said, all right, I'm going to beat that. He warned me to be careful, but they sent me to the therapist and they were kind of babying it. And I said, nah, I can do more. So I just pushed myself and just got on YouTube and the computer and just looking up more and more rehab stuff and just decided I'm not going to be one of those guys that sits around and lets it heal. I'm going to make it heal. And that's where it went.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for staying active right after an injury like that and taking that approach that you did. And clearly it's working. And that back workout we went through, I know, you got a strong back, shoulders to support your muscles there and prevent a future injury like that. But talk to me a little bit about also your start in boxing. I know you were a baseball player, played down here in Florida, college ball. Was baseball clearly always your number one sport growing up?
Well, I played baseball, basketball, and football growing up, so I was always a football and baseball guy. Basketball was more of just an athlete. But football and baseball are my two things. Those were the two things I had all the offers for college for. Baseball, it just made more sense. Some of the guys in football were enormous. So it made more sense safety-wise for baseball. That moved me down from Boston down to Miami. And I thought it was going to go further than what it did. I did well in college. When the draft came, I thought for sure I was going to get drafted. It didn't work out, and it was on to the next thing, and that was how I picked up boxing.
But growing up in Boston, or a Massachusetts guy like myself, you must have enjoyed watching some of the Red Sox guys or Patriots guys, envisioning them in high school, right? So I'm sure you didn't want to give up the football dream very easily.
Yeah, it was tough because as I was graduating high school was when Wes Welker became Wes Welker. And with Tom Brady and seeing Welker and then guys like Edelman and those kind of guys, and it was like, man, that's me.
Yeah.
Those guys are me out there. I can be doing what they're doing. We're the same size. We look alike. Why can't it be me? And, so it was always like, let me look up their 40 times. Let me look up their vertical jump. Let me look up all those things because I want to see if mine's close to theirs and always challenging it. And it was always that pipe dream, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, once you kind of moved away from baseball, your college career, I know we talked a little bit about how you jumped into Golden Gloves and you were fighting guys at heavyweight, right? So we just talked about, you comparing yourself to the smaller guys in the NFL, but then you said, screw that, I'm jumping up with the heavyweights in boxing. So was that just where you were weight-wise at the time? You were lifting a lot of weights, bulking up, or you just didn't want to cut the weight? Or?
Yeah, so at the time, I was about 200 pounds or so, much bigger from trying to hit as many home runs as I could. So I picked up boxing. Just a buddy of mine said, "Oh, there's a gym close by. Let's go just for a different workout." So we showed up to the gym and just hit the bags and see it, and then being competitive. Every day was a new challenge of like, okay, I did this. Let me try to learn this next step. Let me try to learn this next step. And as it went, it went from there. So after 2 or 3 months, I was like, okay, now I want to fight, because I want to see if I'm actually learning or if I'm just hitting the bag for fun.
Yeah.
And I was about 180. I think the most I ever weighed in a fight was 181. I started off in, like you said, the heavyweight at 201, but I was still the little guy, but I looked much bigger. I had guys coming up to me thinking I was 220. I was just a bigger guy, but a smaller guy in the weight class. And I ended up having my first 7 amateur fights at 201.
And you were knocking guys out, right?
Yeah, I had a few knockouts in there. And had my first couple fights, and then went into the Golden Gloves in like my 3rd, 4th, and 5th fight, and ended up winning those. It was still the novice because I had less than 10 fights, but ended up going in there and I dropped a few of these huge guys, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, when you're knocking guys out at heavyweight, and then you come into, 5th Street, that meeting eventually happens, right? When you talk with Dino, and then you start talking about, all right, if I'm going to go professional here, what weight am I really going to be fighting at? Maybe you thought at first you were going to be like Tyson and just pack on the pounds and just come forward and knock guys out. But Dino had other plans, right? He wanted you to go down a little bit.
Yeah, so that was, it would have been a lot easier to be able to just eat whatever and bulk up and, be like Tyson. But it made a lot more sense to go down. So I started cutting the weight and started going down, and then started professional at middleweight. I ended up having some of the amateur fights at heavyweight. I dropped down to the 178, which would be like a light heavyweight in amateur, and then dropped down to 165, and then just lingered around there.
And tell me about, I know we talked off camera a little bit about your diet and kind of how you got your weight down from 200 to that middleweight limit. And it's like, that's not an easy task. You were already in shape. It wasn't like you were, big fat guy out of shape, and you had to drop all this weight. You were just a normal, athlete, and you had to get yourself down to 165. So tell me about like what went into that. That's actually one of the toughest parts of boxing. I tell people all the time when they say, "Oh, boxing's hard," and then I'm like, "No, the weight's hard. Keeping the weight is the hardest thing because of the nutrition and the discipline of making sure you're eating this and not eating that and all that kind of stuff." So I knew somebody that knew a nutritionist. I got linked with that person and started cutting the weight. When I dropped, I was, 185 or so, and I had to drop to 165 in about a 3-week span. So I dropped like a pound a day basically for like 3 weeks straight. Wow.
I dropped to the 165, had a few more amateur fights. Then after my body adapted to that weight loss, but it was tough. There were days where I actually was eating much more than I expected. It wasn't starving myself. It was eating more meals, getting the metabolism going. I was stuffing myself, gagging as I was eating food, and still losing a pound a day. I couldn't believe it. It was like, man, once you realize the science of the nutrition and all that, it's much, much different than a lot of people think.
Yeah, that is crazy. Eating that much food and still losing weight, I'm sure a lot of people want to try to mimic that.
Yeah, right.
But your athletic background, baseball, squashing the bug, they say, getting your hips through the ball. And you talk a lot about bringing that athletic side to boxing and how that's an advantage over a lot of guys that only box growing up, because you just know how to use your athletic movement in terms of transferring that power. And, that's something that you had right away, obviously knocking out heavyweights, and now you're bringing that into the middleweight division. So tell me about maybe your plans here in a couple days, experience so far with your power and your belief in that.
Yeah, so like you said, it definitely carried over from the other sports. It was easy to just understand how to use the body and how to transfer the weight and all that. So that was definitely a big help. And already being athletic and having the athletic background was what was able for me to pick up the sport so quick. In comparison to just learning from scratch, I already understood a lot of the movements and a lot of things like that. So despite starting a little older, I had more knowledge, so I could pick up on it quicker than if I was 7 or something, like a younger kid not understanding their body. And so it definitely carried over. So that's always a thing that stands out for people when they watch me spar, they watch me fight, is the power. You can hear the punches from the crowd. Everybody's always talking about that. And even my last fight, you could hear the announcers talking and mentioning how much of a bigger frame I looked than the other people.
Right.
The other guy I was fighting, because from that weight cut and already having all the muscle mass and having the power and having all that, it translated to the middleweight from the heavyweight. It is a big benefit for me in terms of that, rather than just being just an average guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Already having a lot of that understanding of how to use my power.
And you got it in both hands, both power on both sides. And it is interesting, like when I first met you, I asked, like, what weight do you fight at? You do carry your weight very well. Like a lot of guys, it's surprising when you meet them in person. You say, man, this guy's a lot bigger than you would think. And, clearly that's an advantage. You have that heavyweight amateur background. I'm sure you've been hit by some big hitters. So So when you go down to middleweight, you must bring some of that confidence with you into the ring. But, in a few days here, Santo Domingo, you got your fight lined up. Just tell me about, the excitement, overcoming the injury. Now you're back in there, ready to make a statement, ready to hit the ground running here in 2021.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big mental leap forward to know that I did all my own therapy from the surgery and healed myself. The doctor cleared me in 3 months when he originally told me 6. So just that alone is already that much more confidence of knowing how much control you have of what you do and what you're capable of doing is once you take control of it. And understanding that and knowing, okay, once I go in this fight and I mentally take control, nobody's going to stop me. And just going in with that kind of mindset, it makes you that much more excited and more confident that my mind is there, and once my mind is in the right place, then that's half the battle. In this sport, it's a lot more mental than people realize. They think it's all physical, but there's reason guys like Mayweather are so good and unbeatable, because mentally he's so much above everybody else, and that's a big part of it. And so that gives me a lot of confidence going into the fight, and knowing that nobody can beat me up here, so they can't beat me in the ring.
Right. That's big. And I'm curious with the mental side too, like with being a college athlete, baseball player, is there anything from baseball other than the physical ability to transfer the power, maybe the mental side of it? Is there anything that you say maybe you learned from baseball that you brought into boxing? I don't know. It's just so different.
Well, baseball's a sport where you're going to fail 70% of the time to be a good hitter. So you understand how to overcome any kind of bumps in the road. You go up to bat, and the best hitters in the world are only getting hit 3 times out of 10. So they're failing 7 out of 10 times. You go in that mindset of, I can overcome anything. So even if you're in there and you get hit with a few hard shots, that's like having one bad at bat, but you're still gonna want to hit 300. You still want to get out there, and you're still gonna, okay, that at bat's over, that little exchange is over, I'm gonna win the next exchange. Those types of things. So I wouldn't want to say you accept failure, but you don't let a minor setback stop you from anything.
Yeah, you can push forward. So everyone watching, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing Drew talk a little bit about his story, about his fight coming up this weekend. We're going to post everything, all the details in terms of where you can watch the fight, highlights online, everything. We'll supply all that information to you guys. But this was the Tomahawk. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Make sure to check him out on IG if you want to throw out your IG handle there for them to follow.
Yeah, it's Tomahawk_Dwelly.
So go hit that follow button. Make sure to check this out at ThePodMatrix on YouTube. Appreciate the time, man.
Yeah,
that was
thank
fun.
you for having
Good luck in a few days here.
Yep. Be ready to see more from me.
Awesome.
The Pod Matrix.